stuff inside my lungs. So anyway, we have a couple of other readers here tonight. She is about, are you here, Kate Braverman? I haven't seen you yet.
Right behind you.
Okay, Kate, thank you. She's a founding member of Venice Poetry Workshop and the Women's Building, and has published 4 books of poetry, the novels Lithium for Medea, Palm Latitudes, and The Incantation of Frida K, and 2 story collections. She won 2 Best American Short Story Awards, an O. Henry Award, an Isherwood Fellowship, an Economist Prize, and the Grey Wolf Creative Non-Fiction Prize. She lives in San Francisco with her husband. Please give it up for Kate Braverman.
I love Litquake, and I love this place. When I was in my 20s, 25 years ago, I wrote, well, this is my first one, Lithium for Medea. Everything requires an explanation. Name, age, sex. I am 27, and a pine tree my age knows more. The sex is obvious. I am female, as you can plainly see under the dress, across the flesh. I can meet you in the parking lot. A country setting could be arranged. Weight, height, current addictions, who's dying, how many, just arrests or convictions, you're joking. Marital status, marital status. Jason was sitting in an alcove at a table that had once been mine. My father found it in a junk store and spent an entire month digging through layers of old paint and sanding it, bringing back the fine oak grain. Jason was grinding up cocaine. He looked at me and smiled. He said, "You had a problem?" "It's okay now," I said, pulling my blouse over my head. Jason nodded. "You always panic. See, nothing's that bad, right?"
Speak up.
"Right," I said. Of course, it wasn't me speaking. The me I had once been had disappeared. Someone else remained, some pale relative. Now all I wanted Jason to do was tie my arm up. All I wanted Jason to do was tap, tap, tap the size of the syringe and find a vein to fuck. We were always close when we shot dope. We were sanctified by blood. Jason was grinding up cocaine. My problem had been dismissed. Jason spilled, I can't see this. Jason spilled a small white heap from a glass vial onto a mirror. Then he ground the particles and spooned them in. Jason was concentrating, looking down at his hand, absorbed, intent. 6 years earlier, Jason had said, "There's an art to needles." We were in Jason's house then too. He was studying a new batch of needles. His movements were slow and precise, almost tender. I already realized that he kept his world small and manageable within the walls of his studio. There was no chaos. This was his oasis. Los Angeles was shut out, totally erased. Here it was always late afternoon in an indeterminate but warm season. Jason had built a water fountain in his front room. Goldfish and turtles swam. I could hear them at night in the darkness before I fell asleep. Over the years I learned Jason's studio was a museum of his personal life. Here were the props he used for 10 years, the same or interchangeable women standing in shadow. In the beginning, I wanted Jason to teach me about needles. I wanted him to teach me about the goldfish that swam in the living room and the flowers and vegetables he grew in the garden. I was empty then, washed clean and ready for Jason. I would prove I wasn't easy to erase like his other women had been, the interchangeable ones who posed and he let briefly stay until the painting was finished, until something more interesting appeared, offered him more, if only a slightly different voice or flesh. History. 6 years before, Jason had stripped the needles from their disposable plastic shells. These, see, he pointed, they're too big. He picked up another. Perfect. He held the needle in front of my face, so you'll know for next time. I wasn't going to memorize the size. I wasn't planning on a next time. This was just a halt. There were two of me. One of them sickened with fear. The other, the outside one, sat calmly as if taking notes. I wanted Jason to move through the late afternoon shadows, and he was pulling the kitchen curtains closed. He walked through the house and returned with a bottle of rubbing alcohol and a bag of cotton. He filled a glass of water and tested the plunger. He sorted through the closet and came back with a pale blue bathrobe belt. You know the bad reputation needles have? Jason asked me the first time. Well, they deserve it. Are you sure you want to do this? I was sure. I said yes. There would be a clarification. Something would be sealed and decided. It was a new world. It was a new world, and the old rules no longer applied, courts, laws. We would have to return to something primitive, make our own rituals, sanctify ourselves with our own blood. Needles are their own world, Jason had said. You'll come to appreciate it later. I wasn't planning on later.
Turn sideways a little bit.
This way?
The other way. There you go.
You think so? Kind of a tough life here. Jason was satisfied with the grinding. He drew the lines from the mirror into the spoon. He filled the spoon, put the syringe in. He drew the fluid, the cocaine and water right up through the cotton. I extended my arm. It after all, it was just a piece of driftwood curling dead on the table. Me first, Jason says. I watched him pull the bathrobe belt around his arm. He used his teeth to tighten it. He pressed his hand opened and closed. Watch me, he said. Pump when I tell you. Blood filled the needle. It was very thick and very dark. Blood shows you register, means you hit the vein, he said. And then he was plunging the trigger. Jason took the needle out. He took a deep breath. His eyes went wide. He took another deep breath. You okay? He said. It was a question we would ask each other many times over the years. Jason nodded, slowly as if the floor was unsolid. He sat down. He filled the needle up. I'm only going to show you once, he said, filling the syringe with liquid. He tapped the side of the needle. Tap, 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 tap. That's the rule. I only shoot people once. After that, you're on your own. Tie your own arm up. I pulled the belt around my arm. I can't see this. Okay, Jason said. Okay, Jason said. He was the man at the loudspeaker at Cape Canaveral. He was going to push the button and send the rocket into space. He was announcing an imminent takeoff into another dimension. Let go of the rope, Jason said. I released it. I slid into my lap. There was a hot wind. I realized it was within me, this wind. It was all the wind I'd ever known, the wind of childhood that brushed against my 6-year-old face. It was the wind of afternoons in autumn, the wind when you can sense winter coming in November, a cool and distant promise. It was a wind pressed through lips. It was the wind that falls through the earth. It was the wind I would breathe the next 17 years. Thank you.